Hey everyone, I'm Jeffrey Lerman from SlitherGames.com, and as a lover of Steam demos, I put together a montage. The Steam Next Fest 2024 just finished, and I wanted to highlight some of the cool demos I played. So hopefully you enjoy this montage and subscribe too.
How did I end up here?
The first demo is The Altars, which is such a bizarre adventure game, but sort of survival too. You're the only survivor after crash landing on a dangerous planet and will have to survive using a weird tire-looking base, which you'll see in a moment. But to survive, you need to clone yourself. The way 11-bit Studios tackles cloning is so interesting, which plays further into the story as well. Instead of creating an exact replica of yourself, you're creating alternate versions, each with their own varying lives and personalities. Learning to cooperate with each other is just as important to survive. I didn't get to interact too heavily with clones or alters in the demo, but the little bit I did has me curious how hectic it can get. Aside from creating clones, you also have to expand your tire base using the resources you find. Funnily enough, when zooming out, it almost looks like you're playing Fallout Shelter. The Altars is currently planned for a 2024 release.
What else?
Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers is a clever twist on blackjack that integrates RPG mechanics. If you're a fan of Balatro, I'd recommend taking a look at this game. It's easy to start playing if you know how blackjack works, but even if you don't worry, it's still pretty simple. It quickly gets wild as creative cards are introduced to the game. While the goal is still to get to 21, or beat the dealer, there's much more to it. You'll need to defeat your opponent by having a higher number than them to deal damage when the round is over. Over time, you'll pick away at their health and eventually win. But along the way, you'll get unique cards, for example, a pie card for 3.14, or a card that steals one from your opponent, or an ace up your sleeve that lets you place an ace at any time. I quickly found myself dumping hours into Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers, and it's no surprise. As you go from opponent to opponent, you'll make your own path, picking different events, and eventually visiting different floors with unique music and opponents to face. This incentivizes multiple playthroughs to experience new content. Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers is currently planned for a 2024 release. Die in the Dungeon has some of the best music I've heard so far, and the gameplay is creative too. It can be a little difficult to follow at times, but all it takes is some tinkering. As you can see on the screen, it has turn-based combat, but the confusing part is the board that you place dice into. When each turn starts, your dice will roll, and then you can place those into a board to deal damage to each enemy. The fun part is using the many different dice types to boost each other. For example, the pink ones boost other dice, and in doing so, make them deal more damage, heal more health, or block more damage. It's just a little tricky getting the right placement that you want, especially since most dice have energy costs, so you can only fit so many into the board. Outside of combat, you'll use movement dice to walk along a path with tiles that have different effects. Some can hurt you, while others are more interesting with fun events. Over time, you'll collect items for passive buffs and even new dice to use too. This is where it feels like you can create builds and synergize. Die in the Dungeon is currently planned for a Q3 2024 release.
Are you listening? Get good!
Thank Goodness You're Here is a cute adventure game that always looks for an opportunity to make you laugh. You play as a salesman sent to Barnsworth for a meeting, but you'll have to wait before it starts. In the meantime, exploring the town leads to completing odd jobs and meeting all sorts of quirky people. This is where the fully voiced dialogue and hand-drawn animations bring Barnsworth to life. The demo was short, so I only got to experience so much, but one of my favorite things to do is run around and interact with everything I possibly can.
Nick's Bricks, come get your bricks. Bricks by the brick, bricks by the bag. High quality bricks by Nick.
For whatever reason, your interact button is to slap. So just imagine a little yellow dude running around slapping everything and everyone. That's exactly what I did. Thank Goodness You're Here feels like it's just waiting for you to slap everything to find hidden Easter eggs. Like the bags of trash I slapped that revealed a bunch of singing rats. It didn't complete a puzzle or unlock anything, it just revealed a bunch of singing rats, and I'm okay with that. Thank Goodness You're Here is currently planned for an August 1st release. SCHiM is a peaceful platformer with an amazing soundtrack that you can immediately feel from the demo. The premise is you play as a SCHiM, which is like a little spirit inside every shadow. Unfortunately, you've been separated from the human whose shadow you're a part of. This means you need to hop between shadows to try and get back. The second demo I played showed my SCHiM being around for most of my human's life, which started out fun as a kid but slowly devolved into a much sadder existence, going from riding around on a tricycle to losing your job. I can already tell this is going to be a great cute game but also have a stressful story. Similar to Thank Goodness You're Here, there's a ton of interaction with your environment, whether you're catapulting yourself with a sign or just interacting with random objects. Almost everything seems to react, and that's awesome. In some cases, you'll just shake a chair, while in others, you'll make a stoplight red for someone to cross. SCHiM is currently planned for July 18th. One Button Bosses is a fast-paced action game that reminds me of games like Super Hexagon and Just Shapes and Beats. It has a similar energy in its music and intensity, but the cool part is that, as it says in its name, it only takes one button to play, aside from navigating menus anyway. The way the gameplay works is you move back and forth along a line while shooting at an enemy, but you can press space to reverse your direction or to dash, depending on your ability. Each level can vary with a different design to move along, such as a basic circle or a hexagon with more points to change it up. But the real challenge is learning each new enemy's patterns and attacks. Many levels quickly turn into a chaotic bullet hell, while others may just throw a giant square at you. Either way, you'll need to avoid touching them to stay alive. I'm glad to see one of the first games the Among Us devs are publishing is a bunch of fun. Aside from solid gameplay, it also has silly dialogue too, and a roguelike mode for those that want more replay value. One Button Bosses doesn't currently have a release date. Kill Knight is another fast-paced game where the action feels incredible. Unlike the previous demo with a simple playstyle, Kill Knight is filled with complex mechanics that add to the experience. As you defeat hordes of enemies from an isometric camera perspective, you'll need to keep moving and shooting to stay alive. One simple mechanic is a quick-time reload that many players will be familiar with. However, you can use that quick-time reload a number of different ways. You can use it to empower your weapon, absorb all crystals nearby to use your special ability, or use a strong melee attack. Taking advantage of all three tricks is necessary to survive. Aside from interesting mechanics, Kill Knight does another really cool thing. While you're constantly fighting creatures, the arena you're in changes. This can lead to a large area shrinking down, or random pillars suddenly appearing. You'll need to embrace the changes and be wary of new hazards like rotating lasers. Kill Knight is currently planned for a 2024 release. Who doesn't love more action, but this time in first person? I Am Your Beast follows a retired secret agent who finally snapped and is out for revenge. Speed through levels as you take out mercenaries in a variety of ways, chase time records, and complete bonus challenges while working through the story. The best part about I Am Your Beast is how the developer describes each level as a micro sandbox. This creates a situation where you can play a level repeatedly and find new ways to complete it each time. Will you throw a knife at every enemy? Will you Goomba stomp one? Will you target explosive barrels? Perhaps you found a better path to run through the level. Whether you're doing it casually or to get a faster time, it's a blast even if you're still on the same level. You can easily run through the levels once and not look back, or you can think about each one strategically like a puzzle to solve. The developer also does a good job with their bonus challenges to push you towards seeing things differently. I Am Your Beast is currently planned for August 15th. Sunset Devils kicks off with a killer intro followed by a neat mechanic. In this western shooter, reloading your weapon is an actual process rather than just pressing one button. Did you see what I did there? Every time you reload, you'll need to open the revolver, eject the casing, load a new bullet, close the frame, and then pull the hammer back to shoot. You have to do that every time you reload, and you have to pull the hammer back every time you want to shoot again. And from what I've seen on their Kickstarter, they have other weapons planned as well with different reloading mechanics too. This makes every encounter that much more chaotic when you can't be trigger happy, which makes for a difficult time in this revenge story as you seek out those who did you wrong. Reloading is a complicated process. At first it gets easier as muscle memory kicks in, but aiming still feels a little weird at times. I'd fire a shot at an enemy, reload, and then it felt like my crosshair was somewhere random. This made it tough to follow up with another quick shot. That aside, as I mentioned, the Sunset Devils developer is trying to crowdfund it via Kickstarter, and as of currently, it does not have a planned release date. Tactical Breach Wizards is a creative concept I'm surprised I haven't seen before. This game combines the magic you'd see in a fantasy RPG with the realism of a tactical shooter. But the developer doesn't shy away from realizing how ridiculous this can be at times. Before breaching a room, I can see a wand with a suppressor on it, and a wizard all geared up with an assault rifle. But instead of it stopping there, the rifle has a staff where the barrel would be. It looks goofy, but it works well because it isn't trying to be completely serious. As you may expect from the game's name, this is a turn-based tactics game. You'll need to plan every room like a puzzle as you figure out the best way to tackle it. This can involve blasting someone through a window or hitting them with a laser beam. Unlocking new abilities is always exciting as you come up with new tricks, while also trying to solve a conspiracy plot. Tactical Breach Wizards is currently planned for August 22nd. Grunn starts out as a normal gardening game, almost like a simulator, but underlying it is a creepy atmosphere where something isn't right. As you explore for your tools and get to work, you'll come across Polaroids telling a story. They're often a mix of hints on where to go or something that adds to the mystery. Early on, you'll get a to-do list of gardening tasks with a warning to not stay out at night. But of course I had to, right? Without saying too much, Grunn has different paths and endings to explore, so you're bound to get replay value out of this whether you're playing the demo or full game. Which makes you realize there's probably an ending for simply doing your job. Cutting the grass, trimming the hedges, and cleaning up the trash. Even though for some reason, I'm forced to cut the grass with shears. Why? Who knows. The one thing I do know is that I want to see more of Grunn's weird and at times supernatural world. Grunn is currently planned for a 2024 release. Tiny Glade is a peaceful game where you can create castles and little villages without worrying about anything. It doesn't try to be a city builder where you have to manage food and shelter, it's just a cozy little game that gives you the tools to be creative. Even for me as someone who doesn't gravitate toward this type of game, I had fun with it. I wanted to see how well I could come up with something cool despite not being as imaginative. It led to me creating a quaint little home with gnome-looking houses outside it. One of the cool parts about Tiny Glade is seeing how different things interact with each other, like 2 nearby windows creating a clothesline, or a path through a wall creating a doorway, then customizing that door's size and color to get it just right. Can only imagine how much people will do in the full version with more tools. Tiny Glade is planned for a Q3 2024 release. Pawn Planet reminds me of games like Supermarket Simulator where you manage your own store. Instead of being based in reality, Pawn Planet goes sci-fi. You're still dealing with customers, but some of them have extra eyes or only one. Continuing to build on these differences, you can also haggle with each alien and try to learn their behaviors. One alien may not be as greedy, so they're willing to budge on the price, while another may be knowledgeable and know how much an item is worth. You'll need to haggle to the best of your ability while buying and flipping items, but there are other opportunities to make money as well. Pawn Planet has their own storage wars where you can bid on empty storage containers. And then there's a more action-oriented minigame where you can hunt aliens for loot, but this took more away from the game since it wasn't well done in the demo. I'm curious to see what the full game looks like and how different upgrades may change up the gameplay. Pawn Planet is currently planned for August 9th. Albert Wilde Quantum PI is a noir detective game from the perspective of a cat. This leads to humorous inner monologues where the protagonist always has a silly remark to make, and often enough, not always in their mind. In this universe, there don't seem to be humans, but I could be wrong. Many characters instead make up an animal-human hybrid, while some are just talking animals. It doesn't take long to realize our main character isn't well liked, and may not be the best detective either. Between owing a bookie money and losing countless court cases against him, it's not that surprising.
Not for news, but for other business. I don't think he likes me much.
The demo makes me wonder how much detective work we'll actually be able to take part in though. Most of your time is spent running through dialogue options to learn more, rather than looking for clues to uncover a mystery. It may just be a silly concept with a straightforward story, but it's hard to say from the demo alone. Overall though, they pull off the noir vibe well with a heavy filter. Albert Wilde Quantum PI doesn't currently have a release date. Endzone 2 brings us right back to the struggles of surviving in a post-apocalyptic world. This sequel builds on the previous city builder with a graphic overhaul, building multiple settlements, and a cool expedition system too. I actually had to cut myself off because the demo just kept on going and I didn't want to stop. One tough thing about playing a new city builder is learning all the new buildings and mechanics that are in place. While many games in the genre have similar systems, they're still all drastically different. This is where Endzone 2 does a great job of easing you into its many complex systems. Like learning the many tricks for surviving a post-apocalypse, but also rebuilding too. As goes with any good city builder, there's always something to do as you expand and need to meet new demands. But instead of only worrying about having food and water, you'll encounter droughts and acid rain, which means you'll need to prepare by stockpiling resources and creating production chains for protective clothing. Endzone 2 is planned for a Q3 2024 release.
I'll do it.
The Creeper World franchise is always a pleasure to hop back into, so I was excited to see yet another one with Creeper World IXE. Those familiar with the franchise are in for a surprise as it returns to 2D, but this time with sand physics, which basically just means every pixel of the terrain will react in real time. This makes for a lively experience as you place ships and turrets to fight the constantly growing purple sludge. As you dig into new areas, the surrounding dirt and materials can collapse inward, so you'll need to carefully place new ships and turrets if you want to win, while also being wary of creating new tunnels for the creeper sludge to sneak into. This makes every level an ongoing game of tug-of-war as you gain and lose ground. The demo already delivers a satisfying tower defense and RTS blend. I'm looking forward to checking out more of the campaign and potential user-generated maps too. Depending on how well the tools are for creating your own maps, I can see that become a never-ending source of content. Creeper World IXE is planned for a 2024 release. I could swear we're getting a quiet rebirth of cool typing games, and I'm completely here for it. Glyphica typing survival feels like if Vampire Survivors were a typing game, but it also reminds me of old Flash games like QWERTY Warriors where you'd fight swarms of enemies using your hands. What's neat about Glyphica is how it's much more than just shooting away incoming words. As you destroy enemies, you'll level up and unlock new abilities to help you too. This can be a bunch of little drones attacking words or giant spinning blades that deal damage. Then, going a step further, there's an impressive variety of enemies to deal with too, which can be annoying at times, but it forces you to strategize when picking which words to type. This makes Glyphica a surprisingly complex typing game. As it got more difficult, I had to prioritize tanky words by typing them repeatedly, or take out enemies that spawn in even more words to deal with. It's neat how the developers make you think more carefully instead of just typing as fast as possible, even though that certainly helps too. Glyphica is planned for a Q3 2024 release. Guess what? You're getting another typing demo. Blood Typers is a survival horror game that you can play with others, and I don't think I've ever seen a typing game come anywhere close to as creative as this one. After picking one of several characters, you'll explore a cursed film studio with creepy zombie dudes inside. You can move throughout the studio by typing words that are laid out on the floor. And then when you're ready to fight, you can type 3 words displayed on each enemy. The fun part about playing with others is you can both attack the same enemy. I tried to get in the habit of typing from the bottom up while playing with my brother, even though it still led to chaos as we typed over each other sometimes. Blood Typers is a really cool concept, but the controls can be a little difficult to maneuver. Fortunately, when typing a word, the camera gravitates to that direction, but sometimes you'll need to look around for where to go next or to try and flee. This relies on using other buttons like both shift keys, which can feel limiting if you use all your fingers to type. With that said, the demo wasn't always non-stop action, so you do get a moment to breathe. Blood Typers doesn't have a planned release date.
Have you ever noticed your planet turning into a frozen iceberg?
Climate disasters are here, and it's time to drill the planet to fix it? Welcome to Drill Core, where you're drilling planets to supposedly help their climate, and, definitely not for resources to make money. Each mission has you digging for resources to continue drilling deeper until reaching the core. Along the way, you'll place new buildings, hire more staff, and need to fight off creatures at night. It becomes a balancing act deciding what to invest your resources in if you want to stay alive. Getting more miners to dig quicker is great, but you'll also need guards to protect them. However, the resources won't get back to your base if you don't have transporters. And then when nighttime hits, the bug invasion starts, you'll need turrets too. If you don't plan your resource management well enough, it can all collapse. In an odd way, Drill Core feels like an approachable colony sim that doesn't rely on committing 100 hours to a run. Instead, you'll work through each mission in almost bite-sized experiences, while also gaining meta progression via upgrades across each mission. Drill Core is planned for an early access release in 2024. Mirthwood is a life sim sandbox game taking place in a medieval fantasy world. It quickly gave me a Fable vibe, so I wouldn't be surprised if the developers were inspired by that franchise, and that only has me more excited for both Mirthwood and whenever we get Fable 4. I didn't get a good chance in the demo to feel the sandbox elements, but I'm curious about that most. The Steam page and character creator really pushes the idea of choosing your own path, such as being a farmer, a trader, a fighter, etc. While playing the demo, it felt like I'll get an opportunity to do it all, even though I may not have as many advantages for each role. I'm a sucker for a good sandbox RPG, so I definitely want to see more of what Mirthwood is, but it was tough to get a good read from the limited demo alone. Right now the combat feels a little too simple, and I only had a chance to complete a couple of basic quests, so I'd like to see what the full experience will actually be. Mirthwood is planned for a Q3 2024 release. I hope you enjoyed this demo montage for many of the Steam Next Fest games I checked out. There are plenty of great ones I missed, but I wanted to highlight as many as I could. If you're interested in wishlisting any of them, be sure to check the pinned comment for links to each game, and while you're at it, be sure to subscribe and follow our Steam Curator page for more cool games. This is Jeffrey Lerman from SlitherGames.com, checking out.
What are you still doing here, boy? Get out!